Welcome, let's start our story. It began on a Thursday night, the kind that wraps the town in a heavy silence, broken only by the sigh of wind through the pine trees. Melissa had just moved into the old Bishop house at the edge of Hollow Ridge, a crumbling Victorian mansion that locals whispered about but never spoke of directly. She thought the stories were just small-town superstitions. That was before the knock. At exactly 2:17 a.m., a sharp rap 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 echoed from the front door. She sat up in bed, heart frozen. Who could be knocking at this hour? She crept down the stairs, each step groaning under her weight. The air grew colder with every breath. When she reached the door, she paused, hand trembling on the knob. Another knock. Louder. Closer. She flung the door open. No one, only the night stared back, dark and empty. She shut the door, bolted it, and turned to go back upstairs. But then, from behind her, came a whisper. A voice she didn't recognize. Why did you open it? Melissa spun around. The hallway was empty. Yet the air felt wrong, heavier, charged with something she couldn't name. Then the lights flickered and died. In the darkness, she heard the slow creak of footsteps coming from the basement. But she had never opened the basement door. Not even once since moving in, not until now. When she realized it was already open, Melissa's breath caught in her throat as her eyes locked on the open basement door. A cold draft rolled up the stairs like a warning, carrying the scent of earth and something fouler, like rotting wood and rusted metal. She reached for the wall, fumbling for the light switch, but the power was still out. The entire house was submerged in a suffocating darkness. And yet, from that gaping door, she could sense movement. Not loud. Not clumsy. A slow, deliberate shifting. As if something was crawling just beneath the floorboards. Gripping her phone, Melissa flicked on the flashlight. The beam trembled in her shaking hand as she pointed it down the stairs. It barely reached the bottom. Dust danced in the light, but there was something else, something that darted just out of view. She whispered to herself, "It's just an animal. Probably a raccoon." But she knew she was lying. Swallowing hard, she descended the first step. Then another. Her bare feet pressed against the cold, wooden stairs, each one colder than the last. Halfway down, her phone flickered. The flashlight blinked. Then died. Total blackness. From the bottom of the stairs came a soft sound, a child's giggle. Melissa froze. There were no children in the house. She turned to run back up, but a hand grabbed her ankle. Cold. Thin. Fingers like twigs. She screamed, kicked wildly, and scrambled up the steps. She slammed the basement door shut, bolting it with trembling hands. Then silence. Her breath came in ragged gasps. But as she backed away, she saw something on the wooden floor. A handprint. Small. Smudged in black soot, and beside it, written in crooked letters, "You let me out." Melissa didn't sleep that night. She sat curled in the corner of her living room, gripping a fireplace poker like it was a weapon. Her phone was dead. The power didn't return. And the words on the floor, "You let me out," never faded. As the hours dragged by, the silence in the house changed. It wasn't empty anymore. It listened. Every breath she took felt watched. Every creak of the floorboard seemed deliberate. At dawn, she tried to leave. She grabbed her car keys and swung open the front door, only to find thick fog blanketing everything. The road was gone. The trees around the house looked wrong. Taller. Twisted. Leaning inward, like they were waiting for her, she stepped back inside. That's when the voices started. It began with a whisper in the hallway mirror. A little boy's voice, saying her name softly. "Melissa! Melissa!" She rushed to the mirror. Nothing. But behind her reflection, the hallway stretched just a bit too far. Later, while searching for her charger, she opened the kitchen drawer and found a photo she'd never seen before. It was yellowed, old. A family of four standing in front of the same house. Their faces were scratched out. Only one remained visible, a young boy with wide, lifeless eyes. On the back, written in faded ink, "He lives in the dark." Then came the knocking again. But not at the door. Inside the walls, soft, rhythmic taps, like someone crawling through the hollows behind the plaster. And just when she thought she might lose her mind, a child's voice echoed from the vents, "I'm in the walls now." Melissa pressed her ear to the wall. The tapping had stopped, but she swore she could hear breathing, shallow, eager, and far too close. She backed away slowly, the photo of the scratched-out family still clenched in her hand. The boy's eyes haunted her, like they were etched into her mind. She decided to leave. Now. Fog or no fog. She packed her bag, grabbed her coat, and raced up the stairs to get her wallet. But when she reached the top landing, she froze. There was a door at the end of the hallway. It hadn't been there before. She had lived in the house for 4 days, memorizing every corner, every creaky floorboard. That door had never existed. Yet now, it stood ajar, revealing only blackness beyond. Drawn by a force she couldn't name, she approached it. The air near the doorway felt colder, thicker. Her hand trembled as she pushed the door open wider. Inside was a small, dimly lit room. Bare walls, dusty floorboards, and in the center, a wooden chair, and sitting in the chair was a doll, porcelain. Cracked. Wearing a tattered boy's sweater, Melissa stepped back, bile rising in her throat. The doll's eyes followed her. Not in the way that all dolls seem to watch you, but truly, intentionally. Behind her, the door slammed shut. She screamed and turned, but there was no handle. No keyhole. Only splinters. Then, the soft sound of a music box began to play. The doll slowly lifted its head. And in a voice that was not mechanical, not pre-recorded, but real, it whispered, "Now you're in my room." Melissa backed against the wall, heart thundering in her chest. The doll sat motionless again, its tiny hands resting in its lap, but its eyes, those glossy, inhuman eyes, still stared at her, unblinking. The music box continued to play from somewhere unseen, the tune sweet yet slightly off-key, like it had been playing for decades too long. She ran to the door, pounding her fists against the wooden panels. "Let me out!" she screamed. No answer. Only the melody and the suffocating silence that followed. Then, without warning, the room grew colder. Her breath came out in pale clouds. The doll's head turned again, this time slower, the crack in its porcelain face widening with the movement. "You let him out," it said, its voice now deeper, distorted. "So now, he lets you in." The walls began to change. They pulsed. Shifted. The pale paint peeled away to reveal names, scratched deep into the wood beneath. Eleanor. Jacob. Riley. Thomas. All crossed out. All forgotten. Melissa stumbled back toward the corner. "I don't belong here," she whispered. The doll laughed. A dry, broken sound. "He says you do now." Suddenly, the music box stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than any noise. Then came footsteps above her. Slow. Heavy. Measured. Someone was walking across the ceiling. The light flickered. Dust fell. The footsteps circled. Then stopped directly above her. From the doll's cracked mouth came one final word, cold and final: "Welcome." The ceiling above her groaned. Something started to push through. The ceiling cracked open like an old scab. Dust and plaster rained down as fingers, thin, blackened, and far too long, pushed through the boards above Melissa's head. She screamed and ducked, crawling across the room as the wood split wide. From the hole, he descended, not a man. Not a boy. Something in between. Twisted. Lean. His face was stretched into an unnatural grin, his eyes glowing dimly like dying coals. He wore the same sweater as the doll. "You opened the door," he rasped. "You brought me back." Melissa scrambled for anything, to defend herself. Her hand met the porcelain doll. She hurled it at the creature. It shattered against his face, shards scattering across the floor. He didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped forward, dragging a noise behind him like chains through gravel. "Now the house belongs to you," he hissed. "No." She cried. "I didn't know." But he was already at the final wall, placing a single hand upon it. The names carved into the wood began to shift, fade, and rearrange. A new name appeared at the bottom, carved by invisible force, Melissa. The room began to spin. Shadows crawled up the walls, swallowing the light, the door, the world. Then, silence. The house on Hollow Ridge sat empty again. Weeks passed. Then months, until one day, a young couple parked outside, smiling up at the old Victorian. "It's perfect," the woman said. "Creepy, but charming." They moved in the next week. They never met Melissa, but sometimes, late at night, they'd hear soft footsteps in the walls, and in the attic, tucked behind an old trunk, sat a porcelain doll with Melissa's eyes, still watching, still waiting. The end. Subscribe to my channel, then click the notification button in order to be the first to get my stories.